Hello, hello. I am Zach Rohde, and I am here to lead you into the relationship of your dreams with instinctual polarity and masculine and feminine communication. And what I'm going to be talking about in this video is marriage. Marriage. It's actually one of my favorite topics. Marriage is often not held in the highest esteem these days in 2024. And I'm going to be talking about why you shouldn't get married. Okay. Now, of course, I like to do some clickbaity titles sometimes, and this is sort of one of them, because I actually think there's many good reasons to get married as well. But you need to really, you need to really understand what you are getting into. And many women, sorry, not many women, many people, men and women, when they get into marriage, they're often not thinking. They are thinking with their hormones, that they're still in because of the honeymoon period and haven't really, and I'm not saying everybody, but they haven't really settled into realizing what this is all about, and they do things too soon. So what prompted this is in my free group on Facebook, which if you're not in, you should definitely join. You can find it by going to relationshipyourdreams.com. There was a post about marriage in regards to finances. So I could be wrong, but I think it was a man that posted saying that, there's a lot of women that believe that that women should have like a secret bank account kind of thing in case things go to crap. And he is saying that's really unfair because, men are expected to kind of go all in and use all of their income to support the family. And the woman, especially if she's working, right, she's going to have all these secret funds or separate funds, whatever. And I agree. I actually fully agree with that. And there was a woman who commented, and actually great communication because it wasn't combative, but she was kind of sharing how, I can't remember, she just had concerns because of her childhood with her parents and how, the man, her father, controlled everything, and then they ended up having a messy divorce after a certain amount of time. So and that's true, right? We got a 50% divorce rate, at least in the West or the US. That's pretty bad. And a woman who allows the man to control everything financially, which is what I promote when it comes to polarity, right? That would be the most polarized relationship possible. She's putting herself in a very a very financially vulnerable situation. If she does that without the clarity that she needs, she's making a very dangerous choice. Very, very dangerous choice. And so going back to my title, when it comes to marriage, what I say is don't get married until until you can be as certain as possible, not just in your heart, but also intellectually, that number one, you're not going to get a divorce. Most importantly, like what does that mean? That means you've already done your polarity work, or you've done a large amount of the polarity work. You've learned a lot of feminine communication as a woman, masculine communication as a man. The man already knows how to lead. The woman already knows how to follow and let go of control. Both partners know how to not people please, right? It's not just an act. They're not just wearing masks. There's actually real trust that is established. The man has truly demonstrated a high degree of integrity. Like if I divorced my wife at this point, having like if I chose to for whatever reason, which I wouldn't, but say I did, I have the integrity to make sure that she is taken care of because she quit her job to raise our daughter. It just makes sense. I wouldn't, even if I was angry at her, It's just a matter of integrity to do the right thing. Some men don't have that amount of integrity. And so a woman needs to be sure that a man is really solid with his integrity, with his ability to lead, with his willingness to care for her feelings, with his ability to deal with things if things get tough, right? Like if you have a child, or let's say you have a special needs child, and it takes it to the next level, or some major issue that happens with his ability to work, all kinds of things. Are you guys going to be able to handle that stuff? Better have a really good idea before you get married. Otherwise you're just kind of playing Russian roulette with love. And same thing with a man. Can you fully trust this woman to follow your lead, to not resist, to let go of control, to continue being respectful? Does she truly respect you on the deepest levels? Will she continue to respect you if things, financial situation, whatever changes? Do you trust her enough to not, hide things from you, like a secret bank account or whatever? All of these things need to be fully established before getting into marriage. My position on marriage, and I'm taking religion out of it, whether you're religious or not, whatever, but I consider marriage sacred. I've been married for 8 years. And I could do a separate video on this, but I'm going to go into it a little bit. It's like the ultimate promise. It's the ultimate promise that you are making to yourself, to your partner, to God, if you are religious, to your friends and family. Like it's in front, maybe it's not to them, but it's in front of them, that you are going to work through everything together no matter what. And so many people don't take that seriously. They don't take that seriously. And I will say, like, flat out, what got me through the polarization process with my wife, because I made a lot of bad choices, right? I'm like here making all these judgments about what men and women should do before getting married. I didn't do that. I didn't do a lot of it because I didn't know about polarity. I was still operating from my wounds in many ways. I was still a Peter Pan boy, just wanting to be roommates and all of this stuff, and not understanding how serious marriage was and a man's responsibility and all of this stuff. I didn't know. But what got me through, once I did discover polarity, what got me through it, instead of, like, if I was not married, we'll put it this way, if I was not married, I don't think my wife and I would still be together, because this polarization process was too hard. It would have been so much easier for me to just throw in the towel and be like, yeah, we attracted each other because of wounds. I'm out. I'm going to just find a more feminine woman. It's the truth of it. Even though I loved her, right? It's not because I didn't love her. It's just, when instincts wake up, oh boy, people are in for a lot of trouble, because then your needs come fully online. Your needs come fully online when your instinct wakes up, your masculine or feminine instinct, and it becomes intolerable to continue being in the situation that you've been in without things changing. And then, I was able to figure it out, but it was really, really difficult. What if she doesn't hide the emergency funds? Well, I mean, tell me what you mean by not hiding the emergency fund. So, like, she has a separate account, or what do you mean? Like, in my marriage, my wife does have some income, or sorry, does have a separate account. It has nothing to do with her not trusting me. I just want to spread our money around. I want her to have an account in case I die. She, we have a quota or allowance or whatever that she can spend on herself for whatever each month. Some of it she's just holding, or most of it she's just holding, because I want a separate account. We also have cash that's outside of the banking system. I have my business account. I have my personal account. She has her personal account. It's smart to spread things around. So you could call that an emergency fund. I know about it. I wanted her to have it. And it just makes, I think it makes sense for a woman to have a bank account. So it's not about, you know, with what I teach with polarity, it's not about the man having ultimate control of all the assets where it's like a woman can't touch them. I think there's an issue with that. There's a few issues. There's a safety issue. There's a pragmatic or like a practical issue. There's a few issues with that. Um, and I'm not going to get too much into it, but there's definitely issues with that. It's more just the man's the one that's making all of the decisions around money, around how it works. Like in my business, I gave my wife a 50% share in my business, even though like I fully created it. It's just I trust her. I so she actually has 50% control and stake in it. It's just I'm not worried about that. I make the decisions around it, and she respects my decisions, regardless of what control she has. Like legal control. I'm sick of all this anti-marriage nonsense. I'm sick of this hookup culture nonsense. Yeah, absolutely. Ooh, I'm gonna write that down for a future video. My last video, I had a bunch, and then I totally forgot. There's an agenda for that. Like this is a real thing. There is a anti-marriage agenda, whether people are pushing it consciously or not. And it's funny because I started out. Do I even want to get into this today? How long am I going to go? You know what? Screw it. We're going to do it. Before we do, polaritymasterclass.com. If you want to learn masculine and feminine communication to transform your love life, go there. We're going to role play for you how to how to shift everything using masculine and feminine communication. Okay, next one's coming up in April. So my background, started out ultra liberal, on the political spectrum. And now I'm a very libertarian, but in many ways, you could say quite conservative. There's a reason that we have all of these traditions in society, marriage being one of them. Now, whether the thing with marriage, whether that is sanctioned by the government or not, I don't really care about that part. I don't like the government. Okay, I really don't like the government. It's more about the tradition of marriage, and that it's upheld, whether it's by the government, whether it's by the church, whether it's by your friends and family and community, don't care. But that it's taken seriously by other people. And the thing is, legally, we still have that marriage tradition, yet the culture doesn't really take it that seriously. Or, I mean, a lot of the culture doesn't. It's like, oh, yeah, I've been married 4 times and I just keep getting married. Don't you think you should figure out your stuff before you get married a 5th time? Because you can legally divorce, but clearly you're not actually taking marriage, the sanctity of marriage, how sacred it is, that seriously. Okay. When these traditions erode in our society, it leads to degeneracy, and degeneracy leads to, an erosion of traditions. It's a feedback loop. And that's not to say, like, just to be clear, I'm not judgmental about what people do. Like if you don't believe in marriage, you don't want to get married, or most importantly, you don't believe that you're ready for marriage, you just don't have the maturity or whatever, then don't do it. That's fine. But looking at the bigger picture, culturally, it's a very important institution. It's a very important tradition that people should take really seriously. And so many, what's happened? A big reason that it's not taken seriously today is because I'll expand on this in a moment, but it's because people have been screwed over by marriage. Right? Women getting stuck with men who are abusive, financially and otherwise, men getting taken for everything that they have, and, getting screwed in family courts and all of that stuff. they've been screwed over. And when you've been screwed over by something, you tend to not be a big fan of it anymore. Or you haven't been screwed over, but you saw your parents get screwed over in it. So now what happens? Now you have a anti-marriage mindset. It's not marriage that's the problem. It was your choice to get married when you shouldn't have, or marrying the wrong person, or your parents marrying the wrong person or at the wrong time. Or, everything was actually fine. You just didn't know how to shift things when issues came up because you didn't understand polarity. You didn't discover Zach Rody. You didn't read my books. You didn't go to my polaritymasterclass.com. You didn't join my academy program, right? Yeah, bad stuff's going to happen if you go into a marriage ignorant. And again, I say that like the word ignorant, not in a judgmental way. It's just you lack the information, and you also lack the embodiment to make marriage work. Of course that was going to happen. It's like, going into business and, you put all your money into inventory and stuff and you have no idea what you're doing and you lose everything. It's like, yeah, having businesses is stupid. No, you just made really bad choices when you got into business. You should have been less ignorant. You should have been more experienced. Maybe you should have apprenticed under somebody first. It's not the business. It's not that businesses are bad. It's not that entrepreneurship is bad. It's that you made bad choices. Same with marriage. It's the exact same thing. Marriage is amazing. Another example is children. It's like, oh, I hate having children. Like they're all this work and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I can only speak for 2 years in as a father. I'll give an update in a couple of years, but being a father is the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me by far. By far. Having a child is the best thing in the entire world. I couldn't even imagine going back to not being a father and how less fulfilling that is. Now, part of what makes that so great is I've healed most of my stuff. Am I fully healed? No, there's no such thing. Anyone who says that is a liar, first and foremost to themselves. But, I've healed a lot of stuff to the point where having a child is just fulfilling and not really frustrating. I don't get frustrated. I mean, like maybe never say never, but almost never get frustrated with my daughter. She's a very strong-willed child. Really wants her own way with everything, throws lots of temper tantrums, all kinds of stuff. I love it. Why? Because I've done so much of my work and I also know how to be a reasonably good parent. It's not that children are bad. It's not that having a business is bad. It's not that marriage is bad. It's that you are not ready for it. You are not ready for that level of responsibility. Once you are, these things are fantastic. But before before you have that level of responsibility, those skill sets, it can be a nightmare. Even if you love your child, it can be a nightmare. Even if you love your partner, it can be a nightmare. Even if you love what you're doing in your business, it can be a nightmare because you didn't learn what you needed to learn. You didn't embody what you needed to embody before going into it. So you got all these wounded people who've been wounded by marriage and they're already wounded beforehand. That's what got them wounded in marriage. That's what got them screwed up in marriage, who then carry the message that marriage is bad and that it's outdated and that it's, you shouldn't do it and that it's, just something that crazy religious people still do or whatever. And a lot of that is done on podcasts and talk shows, red pill stuff and all kinds of things. They'll throw out all kinds of statistics. Guess what? I could throw out statistics, 50% divorce rate. It's a bad financial decision. Nobody should get married, right? You're using statistics to prove your point of view because you're not actually intellectually responsible. Look, I could say the same thing about business. What percentage of businesses fail? So I think it's a lot higher than 50%. It's like 90% or something within a certain amount of time. Yeah, never have a business. Don't ever take a risk. It's a bad idea to take a risk. It's a bad idea to have a business. No, just make smart choices about getting into business first, and then you can be successful. And the same with marriage. Okay. I'm the biggest marriage supporter when you know how to be responsible. I don't want to see divorces, right? Because here's the problem. It's not just about the two people getting divorced. It's about the entire family, right? When you have children, and then it ruins an entire generation. Now, of course, those children could be ruined in the marriage as well, whether you get divorced or not, because it's so dysfunctional. So, sometimes it's the right thing to do. I mean, I will make some judgments about marriage, but I'm not judgmental about people's choices. Sometimes you got to undo your bad choice. Sometimes. So a lot of people will undo their bad choice when they could have actually done the work and shifted things. Like in our academy program, we have saved marriages that were like complete disasters, and brought people back from separation as well, on the brink of divorce. Couples that were like couldn't do anything except yell at each other, whose needs were not getting met in any kind of way. These divorce lawyers are making lots of money that shouldn't be made. It's just people don't know about polarity, or they do and think, oh, I don't think it'll work for me. It's too bad. It's too late. My partner's too wounded. Too much has happened. Whatever. No. I mean, sometimes I guess if you're like truly with a legitimate narcissist, there's not really any coming back from that. Okay, it's time to leave. If you somehow attracted a psychopath, okay, you probably want to leave. Someone who's like really physically abusive, okay, you probably want to leave. Like there are those circumstances, but most situations you could actually shift if you actually realized how much power you really have to change everything, even if your partner is not on board. Like, no, polarity's stupid, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we work with clients like that in our academy program whose partners are not on board in any kind of way. And yeah, it takes some time and it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of personal responsibility. But usually people can shift this. And isn't that worth it to save a marriage, to save a family? And then, of course, with single people, like our single clients, one of the things that that's really important is people have a way of finding new problems once they've solved other problems, right? If you are perpetually single, say you're a woman, and it's like, I can't attract masculine men. I just find all these really emasculated men on Facebook, or sorry, on dating profiles on Tinder, whatever, or out in the world. Well, we solve that problem for you. You start attracting really masculine men, and then you get a new problem. Your new problem is that you're in a relationship and all these self-sabotage patterns are coming up to ruin the relationship. Maybe you have to go through a couple of them because your patterns are just too strong. And then you eventually solve that problem. Now, your next problem is making smart choices with the new masculine man that you have, where everything is really great. It's the best you've ever had, the best relationship you've ever had in your life. Are you going to just throw caution to the wind and, might get pregnant? Let's just not use birth control, whatever, not take it seriously. Or let's just get married after 6 months or 8 months or whatever. Now, that can work out, but you're not even past your honeymoon period yet. Things get hard. Like, I think back to my wife's and my honeymoon period, it was just like so easy. Like, yeah, we still fought sometimes, but it was just like it was so easy relative to once that wears off. It's like it's the equivalent of being on, I don't know, cocaine or something. It's like, oh my God, it's just so easy to just have all this energy and to just be happy and have a great time until it wears off. And it's like, oh my God, it's it's so difficult. Everything that was easy before, it's so difficult. Yeah, that's what happens when the honeymoon period is over. People think that it's going to remain this easy. And yes, clients of mine can think, oh, I fixed everything now. My life is so easy. Best relationship I've ever had. Time to get married. Maybe, maybe. But you don't know what you don't know until the honeymoon period wears off. So bringing this back around to what I started with around finances and everything in a marriage is like you need to make smart choices with when to get married, when you're truly seeing that other person for who they are. You need to have ideally overcome together financial setbacks or whatever to know you guys can deal with issues. You need to have been completely honest with each other. You're not wearing masks, you're not being fake, you're not people pleasing, you're truly real. So you're actually loving the real person, not some costume that they've created. You need to make sure you pick the right person because some people are not going to be right for you. You need to make sure that you have learned polarized communication. You've learned polarity and you're truly using it all the time, and that your partner is actually responding really well to it. And if you haven't done those things yet, marriage isn't a great choice. And having children is definitely not a great choice because you haven't done your work enough yet to be ready for something, for a commitment as serious, as sacred as marriage, a lifetime, like it's a lifetime promise. People think today, well, it's like everybody's just getting married and like we'll put it this way, like this is a way to think about it. If you knew that you could not get divorced no matter what, you could not get divorced. It was not legally possible. You had to stay with this person forever. You had to. That makes things a bit more serious, right? Well, that's what a promise is. Like, yes, you can break your promise, but that's how serious a promise is supposed to be. People don't take their promises as seriously as they should. That's what got me to where I am today. And like this is one of, and so I'm going to swing back on something I had said earlier. I actually, even when I got married, I didn't take it that seriously. I did it more because when my wife wanted to feel safe. Okay, let's do it. And I didn't do it because she was leading me into it. I did it because it's like, okay, I want her to feel safe. I really care about her and I want her to feel as secure as possible. So yeah, great. And I loved her, of course, as well. Obviously, I had other reasons. Um, but then going into it and seeing what a relationship is really about and how much harder it was than I expected. Just being married, like the legal, situation that I found myself in, it helped me commit to my promise and stay really serious about my promise. And the more that I focus on this polarity work as well, the more serious I take my promises, the more seriously I take my word for something. It's like, okay, I made this commitment to somebody. And like, so I'm talking about like during this polarization process, I made this commitment to somebody who I love, and now things are really hard. And just maybe it's too hard. Maybe it's too hard to do this. Maybe I could just find a much more feminine woman. And I've done all this work with polarized communication, and like this was in the process I'm talking about. I've done all of this. This would just be easier, right? Now, for some of you listening, like if you're already married and you're learning polarized communication and polarity, instinctual polarity from me, well, that's kind of the situation that you're in. Or if you get married to somebody and you've learned, hopefully by the time you marry someone, you would have a really good handle on polarized communication and instinctual polarity, and being embodied in this work. And then other things come up, right? Other things come up that will hold you to that, because you're married, it makes it easier to hold you to that promise. And that's a big part of growing, is sticking with it instead of just taking the easy way out. I'm a really big believer in that. I've been engaged, but unfortunately it didn't make it to marriage. Now, I honestly don't want a connection legally to the government. I'm open to marriage, but under God, and then use an attorney for the legal stuff like medical advocate, assets. Fine with me. I mean, like I said earlier in this video, I hate the government. It's not a moral institution in any way. It's a legalized mafia. Lots of problems with it. Anyone who's against marriage for that reason and that reason alone, cool. Yeah, government sucks. But and I'm not picking on you, Lynette, because it sounds like this isn't you, but what many people do is they'll use the government thing as a way to justify their fear or their whatever to marriage, when there's actually something deeper that's going on. Right? Like if someone wants to do what you suggested, and the biggest thing to me, and the biggest thing to me, part of this is that we have such community breakdown, family and community breakdown, intergenerational family breakdown, partly because everybody's divorced now. Even if marriage was not a legal thing, but it was just upheld by like elders and family and community and all of that, assuming we actually had that level of respect and connection with our community and family and everything, that's great. That's great. Because that in itself can really hold people. Like, you've made this promise in front of all of these people. If you take that really seriously, you really respect them, you don't want to go back on your word, you come to them when there are problems and you actually have resources. That's fantastic. It's just that our society is degenerated to such an extent that most of us don't have those kind of connections. We don't have that kind of support. We don't have that kind of respect for, older generations, for any of it. It's a mess. It's a mess. And this is what polarity can help fix, right? Polarity is the antidote. Polarity and polarized, polarity is the antidote to all of this. And masculine and feminine communication is the solution to polarize, right? It's like the vehicle to polarize yourself. And that polarization process is what heals you through all of your wounding, all of your fears, all of your shame, all the stuff that is in the way of you being like a man, like the masculine, dominant, devotional, competent man that you can be, or the radiant, vulnerable, permissive, feminine woman a woman can be. It's polarized communication that gets you there. And when we shift that in ourselves, we shift that in our families, there is a ripple effect. And it will take time because our culture, it's a really big mess right now. But all of this can be restored to something far better than it ever was before. And we need to do our own work. We need to do our own work. And every individual needs to choose to take that seriously. You need to take that responsibility seriously. Don't wait around. A lot of people have a victim mindset, consciously or unconsciously. It's just like you're waiting for something to change. It's all up to you. You are your own hero in your own story. Nobody's coming to save you. There are people like me who can come and be like, hey, I can really help you with this. Join my masterclass, do my dating program, join my academy, read my books. You still got to do the work. People like me can just make it a hell of a lot easier for you. But you've got to be your own hero. You've got to do your own work. That is up to you. Only you can choose to do that. But yeah, let's make it easy for you. I want to make it as easy for you as possible. So if you haven't done my masterclass, claritymasterclass.com, we will show you masculine and feminine communication. We will role play it for you. We'll do live demos for you. We will answer questions. If you are a single woman, take my new dating course that's come out, beyondfeminineattraction.com. It's very affordable. If you don't have the budget for my academy program to work with me, this is a fantastic start. If you're in a relationship, that course will still help you, even though it's more focused and targeted to single women. Read my books. All my offers are on relationshipyourdreams.com. Start reading my books. Start making these shifts. Start implementing this stuff into your life. And if you really want support, like you really want to make this happen for you in 2024, you really want these shifts to be as quick as they can possibly be and painless. If you know how hard it is to do this work yourself, if you know your self-sabotage patterns, your fear patterns, your triggers, all this stuff that gets you stuck, and you just want to solve your love life problems for good, women have a man who is totally devoted to you and wants to cherish you, or a man have a woman who fully respects you, follows your lead, and she's fully in her own feminine self-worth. She shares everything that comes up in a beautiful, vulnerable, respectful way. Look into our academy program. Book a call with me. Let's find out if it's right for you. It's on relationshipyourdreams.com too. Let's make this happen. Let's make 2024 and better and better by applying this work. Your life can get so much better so quickly. But that all starts with the choice. I'm going to do everything that I can do to create the relationship of my dreams. All right, that's it for this one.